The Small Business Analysts Society of Canada was formed in October of 2020 with a mission to develop and deliver vocational training for Canadian accounting technicians. Our mandate was to examine the reasons for the failure of CPA Canada's Advanced Certificate in Accounting and Finance, known as the ACAF, which was originally launched in 2015. The ACAF was introduced after the amalgamation of the three legacy accounting bodies, and the decision to withdraw it was made just 2 or 3 years after it was launched. Clearly, Canada's accounting profession had miscalculated. At SBA Canada, we knew that changing demographics in Canada, the US, and Europe meant that, increasingly, there were fewer young Canadians available to replace baby boomers who were now beginning to retire en masse.
We needed to substitute a more realistic pathway as an entry point into the accounting occupation, which is one of Canada's largest, and felt that the obvious place to start was with an understanding of the market for accounting services in Canada. This meant understanding the demographic profile of Canada's more than 4 million businesses that are the primary consumers of accounting services.
No matter which side of the border you live on, the vast majority of businesses are really very small. But most of us don't really get that. About 30 years ago, a college instructor asked me what I did for a living. I told her that I was a tax accountant, doing primarily corporate tax work. She assumed Microsoft or General Motors. But I actually meant something more like Jake and Sonia's Design and Build Limited. I have done work for a few large businesses, mostly when I worked as a specialty tax guide for one of Canada's largest public accounting firms. After leaving the mothership, I worked for a number of years for a company that venture capitalists lovingly refer to as a unicorn. Translated, that means a startup that has somehow magically reached $1 billion valuation. They are the kind of company that makes venture capitalists and policymakers drool. While some venture capitalists may actually help such companies grow, from my perspective, policymakers are usually better at taking credit for these successes than actually helping companies. So I thought I should put together some slides that give folks a better understanding of the size of most businesses in Canada and compare them with their counterparts south of the border. In this first slide, we look at the number of businesses or firms in all of Canada, categorized by size. In all of Canada, there are only about 25,000 businesses with more than 100 employees. But there are more than 4 million small businesses with less than 100. Taken together, these firms only average about 3 workers. In the next slide, we look at the situation in the United States. On the surface, the charts look very similar. The number of self-employed individuals and small firms in the U.S. dwarf the number of so-called medium-sized and large businesses. However, if you look more closely, even the small employer businesses are more numerous and bigger than their counterparts in Canada. It's almost like American businesses resemble Canadian businesses on steroids. Canadian businesses skew very small. About 73.5% of Canadian private sector workers worked for small businesses in June of 2022, according to Statistics Canada. And we don't mean just kinda small. The firms these guys worked for included 1.3 million small employer businesses that averaged less than 7 employees per business. The firms also included more than 2.8 million self-employed individuals, who by themselves accounted for 18% of workers in the private sector.
American employer businesses are larger than their Canadian counterparts. This is true across the small, medium, and large classification statistical agencies use.
We think it should be clear to anyone that the accounting needs of Canada's smallest businesses are significantly different than those of our largest public companies. However, somehow, that fact hasn't registered with either accounting regulators or educators. We believe that both these institutions are so focused on their own grow-at-all-costs imperative that they no longer see how the interests of other stakeholders diverge from their own. In our view, specialization is just as important in accounting as it is in other fields like medicine. Small businesses need general practitioners, they mostly don't need sex reassignment surgery or heart transplants.
As I was tasked with developing courses for the newly formed Small Business Analysts Society of Canada, I took a look at the requirements for a bachelor's degree in business with a major in accounting at Thompson Rivers University. From my perspective, 24 of the 39 courses weren't really relevant for the work most of us do handling tax and regulatory compliance for about 96% of Canadian businesses. I've listed some of the most bewildering examples here: calculus, supply chain management, transfer pricing, international business, or developing the ability to prepare and analyze financial statements of public corporations, standard business valuations, effectively utilizing information systems and technology in support of organizational strategy, strategy and information systems leadership, the Internet and social media, enterprise resource planning and business applications, e-business wireless and mobile technology knowledge management, developing and implementing information systems, security and information systems auditing, information, ethics, and privacy. Do we really believe that students can be trained to lead others in systems design before they've even used an information system in a real-world setting? What employer would let them anywhere near organizational strategy before they'd had 10 years of experience under their belt? ERP systems? The Internet and social media? Where does it end? In terms of business advisory services, we're training students for the equivalent of Amazon's Everything store. As my late mother would have said, we're encouraging students to be jacks of all trades and masters of none. We are really playing upon the ambitions of young people to develop overblown notions of their own abilities and knowledge on graduation. We are creating expectations that can only be shattered when students finally leave school and arrive in the real world.
We developed the Business Analyst Technician program consisting of 5 self-study courses that are free for prospective students to download and study independently. The first 2 of these mimic small public accounting firms' work when providing tax and regulatory compliance services for our smallest businesses. These courses are designed to help students get familiar with the fundamental accounting algorithm and how transactions are compiled and organized in working paper files supporting financial statements. The remaining 3 courses provide insights into our legal system as it relates to the fundamentals of compliance, payroll, and indirect or sales taxes. It is recommended that employers arrange for tutors or coaches to assist students as they work their way through the courses.